So, the kind folks at Pixel Maniacs sent me a key for the demo of their brand new game, Chromagun 2, Die Hard. And as a puzzle game enjoyer, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to try it out. And since their demo is releasing today, I thought, why not post a review so you can figure out whether or not you'd like to try it out. The devs also kindly sent me a key for the first game in this series, and considering I'd never heard of this game series before, I figured it would be a good idea to brush up on the series' history by playing its first installment. The impression I'm getting that this is trying to be Portal, but using a paint gun instead of a portal gun. Which is generally fine, I enjoy Portal-likes, but this one felt off. Let me start with the positives. For a game made in 2016, the game's levels look pretty nice. The design of the titular Chromagun feels unique, and the music is absolutely lovely. Although the elevator at the very start honestly just set the tone of a meme game. And in theory, I think the puzzles work well for a game designed around color mixing. There's a fundamental difference between Portal and Chromagun, which makes Portal a bit more endearing, the ability to correct mistakes. At the very least, some checkpoints between certain parts of the puzzles would have done this game a lot of good. Having to start the puzzle over after making one mistake was frustrating. It felt like I was being punished for not knowing how the puzzle worked, rather than allowing me to explore solutions. But I also think the reason that checkpoints weren't feasible was because there was only one solution to every puzzle, so saving at any point the player could have possibly gotten the process wrong would have well and truly bricked the level, causing even more frustration. While both games have hazards and things that will kill you, portals are generally stationary and make the puzzles predictable to complete, but not necessarily easy. In Chromagun, the puzzles are not particularly challenging, but the moving droids that can kill you can cause the game to become suddenly overly challenging, and not for the puzzle, but rather dodging the droids, which move to follow the player. The Talos Principle also has droids that will explode and kill you if you stand too close, but the droids move in linear patrols, only following you if you stand too close. The droids also served a purpose, breaking walls or fences, allowing the player to move to areas that they wouldn't have been able to with other mechanics that they have access to. The killer droids in Chromagun 1 seem to be totally arbitrary, not serving any other purpose than causing the player to move around the room if they haven't done what they needed to keep the droid from killing them. To be frank, I only played a bit through Chapter 3 because once the puzzles were resolved, it just didn't feel rewarding. I mostly just felt like an idiot for not getting it the first time, even though many times it was hard to see the relevant parts of the puzzle's layout in order to ensure I could work out a solution. The game wants you to be both perfect at the game and quick on your feet by Chapter 2, which makes for a rather discouraging difficulty curve. I was also quite disappointed that beyond the test moderator's GLaDOS-style jabs, there didn't really seem to be a bigger story here. There was even a chance to do some set dressing with the receptionist that you find at the very start of the game. Any kind of dialogue with her would have been great, and it was a missed opportunity. In total, this game seemed like it tried to be Portal, but missed the things that made Portal fun. But nearly a decade has passed since Chromagun 1 was released, and I'm sure the developers have learned a lot since then. Well, this looks nice and fresh, and the receptionist talks this time. We're still in shiny white test chambers, but they look a lot more visually stimulating this time around. But, dun dun dun! Plot twist! We got multiverses, baby! The story of the Chromagun plays into how rewarding it feels to complete puzzles. You're not just completing puzzles, you're learning more about the worlds and the voices within them, which makes you want to dive deeper into the experience. But the biggest gripe I had about the first game is finally addressed, and that's removing colors. Being able to correct mistakes makes this such a smooth experience. This also feels like it's trying to be less of an obvious Portal remake, which is great. The environments feel fresh, the puzzles feel interesting, and there's been a lot of updates since the first game that make the actual puzzle-solving experience a much better one. The multiverse angle gives the devs an excuse to create some really interesting environments, which they've done pretty well to move away from simple sterile test chambers, while still making the puzzle elements stand out clearly. However, I feel tutorialization may not be all the way there yet, at least at the time I'm playing this demo. One fundamental mechanic, black paint or mismixed paint, is not explained much, if at all, at the time you need to know about it. It's crucial to understand this in order to understand how to make objects in the world stop where you want them to, otherwise you will be quite confused. Thankfully, the developers included a walkthrough when they sent me this game so I could better understand it. It's possible I could have understood this mechanic intuitively if I had played all the way through Chromagun 1, but I discourage the reliance on a previous game's explanations of mechanics for their sequels, especially if the games are as many years apart as Chromagun's are. And unfortunately, the restart chamber button doesn't seem to work either. And while I commended the varied level elements earlier, the chicken level did not make it very clear whether or not the chickens were friendly, which, spoiler, they weren't. I don't know, if big goofy chickens were on the docket, making some angry eyebrows and slapping them on may have helped. In games like this, the puzzle elements should be consistently designed, but if they're not, there needs to at least be some indication to make clear what their function is. Overall, the game looks better, and there's definitely some quality of life features. I think there's more ways in which the game could probably find better footing with players. To really capture that test chamber vibe, probably less clutter could be used in the level design itself, so players aren't overly confused by what they're able to interact with. For example, this box under the elevator. It doesn't do anything, but you can paint it. Maybe there was a secret or something there, but I just wasn't really sure why you would make this an option. The other thing I noticed in my playthrough is the lack of coyote time when jumping, which in turn also laid bare a problem in puzzle creation, at least the one where the jump ability was demonstrated. This puzzle was actually quite simple, but nearly half of it was unnecessary, making the player activate jump pads that were on platforms that they already jumped to. Barely, due to how small the player's jump ability is. Making half a puzzle for the sake of making things slightly more convenient for the player if they fall, with no consequences, mind you, just doesn't seem like great puzzle design. So, in some ways, Chromagun 2 is better than its predecessor, and in other ways worse. Maybe when the full game comes out, some improvements will have been made. There is a feedback form you can fill out in order to help the devs improve the game. It's definitely on the right track, but I think there's just a bit more polish that could be made in certain aspects of the game to make it run smoother and make puzzles feel even more rewarding to complete. If you're truly curious about this game and smarter than me, definitely give both games a roll. While I've been fairly critical of these games, I think that they'd be worth playing, but just with the caveat that if you're expecting the game to run like Portal, it won't. At the very least, please do give Chromagun 2's demo a try. It doesn't cost a thing, and you can send your feedback to the devs as well. A big thank you to the devs for giving me a chance to check out this game, and I wish them all the best of luck with finishing the game. Be sure to wishlist and play the demo, which is out now. And, as always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!